Hey everybody, every year at the beginning of the year, the fitness conversation gets really loud. There's new offers at gyms, new workout programs, new scales, new mirrors, all the new technology. But then what happens is things tend to fizzle out come February. And we noticed this, that when you owned a gym, that the largest time of the year where people started signing up for like coached classes or personal training was getting into like March.
Oh yeah, March was our by far busiest month of the year, which was really interesting. I think most people would have guessed in the gym January was, when we would have had the mad rush, and definitely there was, a bit of that in January, but we always saw, statistically speaking, over, probably a 10-year period, that March was really the month for us when people came in. And we have few guesses probably as to, assumptions that we can make just based on the conversation we had with the people that were coming in March. And essentially it was that, they gave it a shot in January, kind of leading into February. And then kind of early to mid-February, they were like, wait a second, this isn't going the way that I want it to. Right. And then they started reaching out to find somebody who, some coached fitness or personal training.
And I think when we look at that, we go, all right, why do people get away from it? Why isn't fitness just part of our lifestyle? Why isn't it something that we do? Why isn't it something we look forward to? There are things that people love doing. I see people around our neighborhood every day walking their dog. I see people, I don't know, they have habits and things that they enjoy doing. Like some people read books, and there are people out there who don't read ever, and there are people that love to read. Yeah. How do we reframe the conversation around fitness? How do we make fitness something that we look forward to doing? And I think a lot of it goes back to value. You can't just be motivated. You have to kind of be inspired, and you have to think about it in a new mindset. Like, don't get me wrong. There are days that, most people wake up certain days and they don't really want to go to work, but they go to work anyway because they know they have to. Yeah. And there's this idea, like if you don't, like over time and perpetuity, like life's going to get really bad really fast. Right. And unfortunately, we can get away with, that with fitness, or we think we're getting away with it for time. But when that finally comes back around, and that comes back to, comes back to roost or whatever, at that point, you're going to regret it. And so how do we make it fun? We've been to areas before. I've been to Denver, Colorado, or Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, places where like people are just more fit. They're out and about, and it seems like, you just kind of look around and it's part of the culture. Yeah. What is it that is in that mindset? And how do we build more of that? So the conversation, some of the things I wrote down was that this year we can't make fitness just about looking good. It has to be about function, resilience, longevity, and energy. And we want to really redefine this so that we're fit from the inside out, that it's not just about looking good. It's about feeling good, functioning well, recovering well, doing life better, feeling more capable, and developing the tools to really live out a life that's fun.
Right. And I think two things kind of come to mind in this. And one of them is that when we were, if you would have ever sat in on one of my team meetings, one of our team meetings with the coaches, you would have heard a conversation that we would have talked about over the years. And it was essentially that our competition was never, in our gym, we never viewed our competition as like the gym down the street. Right. Yeah. Like we really didn't even view the Globo gyms, around in the city as our competition. We always said that our competition was the couch. And the big thing with that was that there are enough people that are not engaging in fitness at all, that if every single person in your town was like, I'm going to go join a gym today, there aren't enough gyms for the amount of people, right? And so it was like, we just need to engage the people. We just need to get the people engaged. And the real deal with engaging, like with that, was that if our competition isn't the other gym, it's just the couch, then what are we doing? How is this system of fitness, right, engaging somebody to the point where they want to continually come back? And we always said the best method of fitness is the one that you're going to stick with, the one that you're going to engage with, the one that you love, the one that you fall in love with, the one that you're like, I got to get there, I got to do this, I want to be there, I want to do it. Right. And so it just becomes like this lifelong routine. And so that was the thing that we focused on, is becoming that place that somebody fell in love with. And so for some people that's CrossFit, for some people it's spinning, for some people it's Pilates, for some people, there's a lot of different things. And we talked about, there's something that was really brilliant. Why did we love CrossFit so much? I think there was a lot of brilliance inside of CrossFit. And I think a lot of that sort of morphed over the years. I'm really specifically talking about, those early CrossFit days where you could come in, you could do a workout. Your workout might be 17 minutes long and you left, right? It wasn't like we were programming necessarily 60-minute classes every single time. Some of them were long, some of them were short, constantly varied, was, the deal with that. But we really got into the nuts and bolts of that 10 aspects of fitness. And I think that that's something, for us to talk a bit more about today. But I also want to talk in conjunction, the second point that we really got into with this is, after we read the book Atomic Habits years ago, it really changed the way that we set our life up. So like when you talk about, you go to a city like Denver and you just see everybody outside and everybody moving, there's this thing about building your life around, the habits that you want to have, and making them easy, and making them accessible, and making them just right there, and having like these micro habits that lead into these bigger habits. And there's all sorts of principles in the book. The book's wonderful. Go get it. Go read it if you haven't read it. If you read it a long time ago and you need to reread it, knock yourself out, because it's a wonderful book. But one of the things that we did after we read that book is that we just changed the layout of our house. We literally took the first floor little kids playroom that we had and we turned it into a gym. I mean, if you could have turned our kitchen into a gym, we would have done that. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
central.
it was just something that we were like, we want it right in the main, like it's not off to the side.
It was on the main floor.
Away.
Like if you think about how houses are set up, it's actually a great point. They're set up mainly around entertaining, which typically includes the television.
Or eating. It's like eating and entertaining.
Well, and I think your life should be set up around eating, but doing it in a way that's conducive to health. So I don't mind having your life built around nutrition. So it's, the pantry or the kitchen and the TV are the two major pieces. And we wanted ours to be the kitchen and the gym. And recently we even talked about a room, literally a prayer room, room for prayer and Bible study and just a prayer room. Yeah. And, that's just a very interesting thing. So let's take this conversation about working out away from aesthetics, and let's bring it towards this concept of what we call fitness and those 10 aspects of fitness. So I have, notes here that abs aren't necessarily a marker of your health. That you want abs, but there are plenty of people, that are thin and they're not resilient, right? They've lost weight, but that doesn't mean their metabolism is actually healthy. We did a couple episodes on metabolism. Fitness isn't really about how you look in a mirror, although it might include that. Fitness is how well your body is adapting to stress. So here's the reality. If you've been working out for years and years and years and years, and you're still carrying around excessive weight, something might be broken. And that something might not just be the exercise. It might be how you feel pre and post exercise. Or it might actually be the way that you exercise. That being said, the opposite's true. Just because you have muscles doesn't mean you're fit. So
I think of that when I see, do you ever see these like, it pops up on social media sometimes, but you see these people like that are, influencers, and they're usually young, because let's be honest, like you're not gonna, you can't carry this habit well into old age, but maybe there's some of the older bodybuilders that are a little bit like this too, but you have these people that pop up and they're like, let me show you what I ate. And then it's like a chemical storm of just ridiculousness that you should never put in your body, right? And you're like, wow, that person's really fit. And then they're eating that like weird sugar substitute thing, or that weird like...
Yeah, or some of the prepackaged meals that are chock full of just the garbage, bad, canola oil and bad oils and, chemicals. And like you said, processed ingredients, and it can't last for, or, like even some of the nutrition bars, right? I don't want to name brands, but like we worked very hard at making sure even supplements we were taking, how we fueled our body. If we were taking a nutrition bar, it was more whole food based. And, some of the brands that we did love, like the Perfect Bar, stuff like that, is more natural than, some of these more processed, protein and snack bars.
But it kind of reminds me of that, like it reminds me of that talk, like when someone would come into the gym and they were like, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds. It'd be like, okay, let's chop off your leg. And they're like, wait, what? Like, don't chop off my leg. And it was like, well, that's the quickest way to lose 30 pounds. So
yeah, that's in response to, I want to lose 30 pounds fast, yesterday.
Right. And it's like, okay, so that's not what you want to do. What you really want to do is you want to get healthy. And the byproduct of getting healthy is looking fit, right?
And steady weight loss sometimes means slow initially, but slow weight loss, if it's steady, equals fast weight loss. Like it happens faster than you think, although it may start slower.
Right.
And again, getting away from just weight loss, looking at weight loss, building muscle, your hydration, all these things that play a role into this, but really looking at your fitness as something itself to be valued. Because one of the things that I've noticed is getting stronger, building muscles, losing body fat, all this. If you just focus on these 10 things, you tend to get healthier. You tend to lose excess body fat. You tend to build muscle. You tend to build bone density. And so the 10 aspects of fitness, these were taught by Greg Glassman. And it all kind of stemmed out of early days of CrossFit. He was asked to define world-class fitness, or he defined world-class fitness in under 100 words. This is back in the day, like if you were going to have a brand or a company, the exercise was, what do you do? Can you say it in under 100 words, your elevator pitch, so to speak? And Greg Glassman's was eat meat. And what's awesome about this is he's talking about world-class fitness, and he starts with what to eat. Yeah. And I love that. He says, eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake levels that will support exercise, but not body fat. So eat just enough to support what you're doing, but not beyond that. How do you know you're doing that? Well, you'll lose body fat. Mm-hmm. And then he says, practice and train the major lifts. Deadlift, clean, squat, press, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics. Pull-ups, dips, rope climb, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstand pirouettes, flips, splits, holds. And then he goes bike, run, swim, row, etc. Hard and fast. Do it 5 to 6 days a week and mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Why? Because routine is the enemy. So keep your workout short and intense, regularly learn and play new sports. Yeah. And if that sounds like, wow, it's because it is. It's actually really profound. And he was talking about world-class fitness. But what was interesting is out of that boomed this thing with CrossFit. And I really would say CrossFit changed fitness for, like, especially in the US, it changed fitness for the first time in decades and made it cool to want to become fit. And fitness didn't necessarily mean just looking good. It's not the days of the bodybuilders. You were either a bodybuilder or a power lifter.
If you were a woman,
you either did aerobics, you know, or you were working out with Richard Simmons in your living room or whatever. Yeah. And this took it and was like, you know, like, hey, being an athlete doesn't have to end at 18 when I graduated high school or at, 22 when I graduated college. Right. So then there was these 10 aspects of fitness that Greg Glassman then said, okay, so if we're going to be fit and we're not talking about just having abs, what are we talking about? Yeah. And he defined it through these. So number one was strength, and that's your ability to produce force, like to be able to lift something or push something. Do you have the strength to be able to do that? And there's a lot of things in life that as an adult, as we age, it behooves you to stay strong. Yeah. We had a friend who owned a CrossFit. It was called Stay Strong. Stay Strong. I love this idea of fitness over age. We've talked about this a lot recently, but having muscles that are functional is huge as you age. So then the second one was...
And can we pause on that number one? Because I don't know if these are in order, but strength, I'm glad strength's number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the order that they were in. Number two was muscle endurance. So the ability to sustain that over time. So not just being strong, but then having endurance and being able to do an activity over a longer period of time. The work day is long. And I mean, this goes back to the days of we weren't all sitting behind desks. Like somebody had to bale the hay and somebody had to, drive the cattle and, all this stuff. Like to have muscular endurance is never at a disadvantage. Now, the next one was cardiovascular endurance. So this is oxygen delivery and utilization. A lot of times I think we think cardiovascular, we think heart health.
Right.
Well, the only reason that cardiovascular exercise is good for your heart is because it's driving oxygen into your cells. So it's all about the breathing, and it's all about driving that oxygen into your bloodstream. And your heart does really well with that as well. Your heart, just like any muscular tissue, wants an oxygen-rich environment. So really cardiovascular exercise and endurance is all about oxygen delivery. What's going on with my tongue? Oxygen delivery and utilization. The next one is power. So this is if you think of like a bodybuilder, they can have a lot of muscle, but that doesn't mean they're explosive. Right. So a great visual of this would be like the Olympic lifter. So like the power lifter, the deadlifter, he might have a lot of strength. He'll pick some up real slow. Yeah. But the Olympic lifter grabs sometimes that weight or heavier and has it over their head, and it's all about that power.
And a lot of parents that are looking to get their, kid athlete, like when your kids are young and you're trying to get them in, or even in their teenage years, you hear a lot about like speed and agility training and somebody's that just focus on this. So that's the aspect of fitness that they're focused on when they're talking about like, oh, we have this speed and agility facility that you come in and you do this training. They're really focused on that power aspect of the 10 aspects of fitness. And
power is something that as you get older, you don't think of like needing lots of power per se. But I actually had a patient just a couple months ago had an injury at work where a bookshelf fell on them. Oof. And they were trapped underneath it. And power is like that ability to quickly push that and get the heck out of the way. So power is the weight, the physical weight, and the power, the strength it's going to take, plus the speed to do it quickly, and then also have the speed to get out of underneath it. Power can save your life. Power is speed plus strength. So it's combining those two together. Mobility is a huge one, especially as we age, that people don't break hips from falling. And I said that one time to an older couple, and they're like, what? They don't? How do they break them? Or I said, people don't break hips, because of osteoporosis. Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, well, how do they break them? I'm like, they break them from falling. Right. And so the idea that mobility is huge. We should be worried less about your DEXA scan score and less about your bone mass, your T scores and Z scores. And we should be worried more about your mobility. Right. Like a couple of the things people break hips, they trip over cats, dogs, and rugs. Again, why do they trip over cats, dogs, and rugs? Because it's not the tripping, it's the landing, it's the fall. And so if you trip and have the mobility to catch yourself, you're not gonna be at risk of breaking something like that. So as we age, this idea of keeping our mobility, keeping our strength, keeping our speed, it blows me away how people can hit 40 or 50 years old. I have a patient, she's in her young 60s, and she has now told me about 3 falls within the last 2 months. And I'm like, how in the world are you falling that much? Like, I don't think I've fallen 3 times in the last decade. Right. How are you falling 3 times in 3 months? And it's because she has lost a lot of mobility and a lot of, strength over time. And that's not going to end up well. So the time to be working on that is right now. All the time. Right. The next aspect, number 6, we talk about flexibility, right? So flexibility is more of that passive range of motion that you have. Think stretching, your ability to move a joint through a range of motion. Right. And we used to have a book sitting around the gym. You know what I'm going to say? We used to have a book called Becoming a Supple Leopard. A Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett, right? Yep. And we used to have that always. We had a few different books in our gym. We had the Starting Strength book. We had a few different ones, but that one was always one. Relax to Stretch was another one we used to work on mobility with. Right. And so it was one of those ideas, like it's the idea that like you have sometimes there's an image that'll come to your brain where if you're like, oh, I'm going to start lifting weights and I'm going to
gather this aspect of strength into my body, then you have this idea that you're going to be walking around like this.
Yep.
And like, you're not going to be able to turn.
Well, and you can build strength to the point of losing flexibility and mobility. So mobility meaning your ability to move using your muscles, and then flexibility is passive motion. So if somebody were to grab your leg and try to do a stretch, and you're like, it doesn't bend that way. That's your flexibility. And both are very advantageous as we age. You lose flexibility, you lose mobility, you start to lose function.
Right.
And like putting on your socks, like that's the one I hear all the time. People are like, man, once I turn, I struggle to even put on my socks in the morning.
Right.
It's like that's not part of fitness.
And so I think that there's a balance, right, in that, where when you're working on one aspect of fitness, you're balancing it with some of the other aspects of fitness so that you're a well-rounded individual, right? And that's what...
It's hard to get to the gym if you can't put on your gym shoes.
That's fair.
and the flexibility thing, I've noticed this happen too, is the whole like slip-on shoes. There's a brand that starts with a K. I can't remember if they're called like Kinetics or Kizics or something like that. Yeah. There's the Hey Dudes, the Crocs. And I wonder if part of that is literally people losing flexibility and mobility. Yeah. And they're wearing, don't get me wrong, I understand there's some convenience to it, but I wonder if some of that is, because I see it a lot, especially older guys. I see a lot of Hey Dudes, walking around. Yeah. And I wonder if that's like they've actually lost flexibility, and this now doesn't expose that. They can wear Hey Dudes and not really have to have that flexibility per se for putting on their shoes. Next one's stability. So if we have, flexibility or mobility is like range of motion actively, and flexibility is passive range of motion. Stability is almost the opposite. It's having control through a movement. So this is your ability to do a movement, but do it with precision. Yeah. And so that coordination is stability is such a huge thing that we want to, because stability and mobility kind of go hand in hand with each other. It's hard to be mobile and to be, active and to keep our balance and do all this without being able to have precision in our movement. Why do people trip or fall? Because all it takes is that cat running in front of them, and you throw off their step just a tiny bit, and all of a sudden they don't know what to do. So that stability is huge. And
a lot of times we would do, like, if you're thinking like, oh, what are those stability exercises, right? There was a lot of things that we did in particular to work on stability, and you would incorporate a lot of those smaller muscle groups to kind of help that stabilizing factor. And so there were times
using instability too.
We were using instability, so we would take these Bosu balls, and so we would put like, you have a flat bottom and you have a round top of the Bosu ball, and sometimes we would flip those over, right? And we would have clients
people stand on them,
those, right? And do
even their warm-ups, just their squats.
Yep. Sometimes it was just going through their entire warm-up, or sometimes it was part of their exercise, that they were doing, part of the exercise that they were doing, where we would actually have them. Sometimes there's foam pads that are uneven surfaces that you can do. Sometimes you're standing on one leg doing things, or standing on the other leg, to sort of develop that stability. So there's lots of different ways to develop stability. If you're one of those people that feel like, hey, I don't, I'm very unstable, just in general, or if you're one of those people that, maybe you've overtrained some of the larger muscle groups and undertrained some of those, smaller, more stabilizing muscle groups, you got to do everything. You gotta keep it well-rounded. And
especially as we get older, if you want to not be the person that's, got really bad knees or really bad shoulder, number one, a painful joint is usually a weak joint. Mm-hmm. And also, it's not just the big movers that are weak. Sometimes it's these, like you said, little intrinsic muscles. So I remember like shoulder. For athletes, this makes sense. If you had a pitcher, you want him to be able to have the power and have the speed. But on top of that, you also want stability because you don't want to get injured. Yeah. And so what we would do is we would have them do things like they might bench press or whatever, but then they're going to at least do maybe a set or two or a couple sets where instead of the weight being on the bar, the weight's actually hanging from basically large rubber bands, like resistance bands. And you literally like go to bench press and the bar is like shaking around because of the instability. Why? Yeah. Because that instability training breeds stability, and it's that joint strength. And then that leads us to coordination. Some of these might sound similar, but coordination now is all about efficient signaling through your nervous system. So this is, you see this with the race car drivers. They have the thing where they have to hit the the lights. So
Yeah.
you'll have this wall, the light wall. I forget what it's called, but there's a light wall and the lights kind of come on. Or think of back in the day when you go to Chuck E. Cheese, the gophers that would stick there. What was that called when the gopher would stick his head up
Like
out of the hole? Whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And so you had to like whack-a-mole.
Yep.
Think of that. That is coordination. Coordination is this, this ability to do things fast with precision.
Pat your stomach and rub your head. Or
Coordination.
Pat your head and rub your stomach.
And then the integrity of that nervous system, not just that's more reactionary in the speed and precision of it, but then the ability for that to function over, time, that's really what ends up leading to balance. Yep. So you got coordination, quick movement, if you put out some cones, being able to kind of move around them. But then balance is the ability to, when you land and you're shifting, to be able to maintain that sense of what's up, what's down, what's side to side. And then the last one really is accuracy. And so to be able to do something accurately, right, to be able to hit that mark. One of the accuracy exercises was one of the first CrossFit workouts I ever did was wall balls. Yeah. And you're not just throwing a ball to a wall and then catching it, you go down into a squat, you come back up and you throw it up. But you're trying to hit a target. And they used to have like a line, and then they went from a line to like an actual round target. Yeah. And then you start to realize, like, if you could hit that round target every time, you could get more efficient. And so that accuracy actually added to being able to do something faster with more precision, and do it more accurately. And then eventually what that did was because you're moving faster, now it's working your cardiorespiratory endurance. Now you're actually able to do more of them. So that's your, really that, that ability to maintain strength over time, have that muscular endurance. So it was interesting how all 10 aspects kind of play into one another. And when one gets worked on, it has effects across the board on a lot of the other ones when you're doing functional movements. Most people train maybe 2 of these. Yeah. Longevity is all 10.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I would probably even say that like most of your and don't feel bad if you're one of the people that only train 2 of these, because there's a lot of fitness professionals that are only training 1 and 2 and really 3 of these, right? And
in fact, most elite athletes aren't training all 10 of them. Right. They're focusing on certain aspects, like runners. They're fast. They might have coordination. Yeah. They could be losing some mobility. They could be losing some flexibility. They could be losing some strength.
And that's probably that's required, right? Like if you want to be
like a distance runner,
if you want to be the number 1 person in your sport, like and we're talking about like a well-rounded person for like what are the 10 aspects of fitness for a well-rounded person?
What you do find in those sports where there's a compromise is that when they're off, right, they work on those other things. Yep. So like runners working on their strength. They know, like it used to be believed you didn't do that.
Yeah, like golfers, like when Tiger Woods came in, right? It was like accuracy was the only thing that they were, or maybe
the accuracy
power.
Of your swing. Yeah, maybe how much power you could generate. But Tiger Woods created the new brand of golfer, which was all the golfers became athletes. Right. And they started hitting the ball unbelievably different. And it changed the whole game. You'll see this also, like back in the day, it was like Bo Jackson, Barry Sanders. It was the running backs taking ballet. I mean, I'm serious. That was a thing, and they were doing like ballet because it added to their balance, their coordination, their stability. Right. These things that translated over to a sport. I think like when I remember hearing that and like picturing like Barry Sanders in a tutu or something, and I'm like, I don't think that's what they were doing, but they were actually taking ballet. Thing.
We had a yoga offering that we started offering at CrossFit, and she was also doing yoga with the Bengals, right? So it was like, there's crossover in that as well. So, all
right, the next one is muscles. Muscles not just for the mirror, and muscles not just for the beach, but muscles that are we're looking at it not just through the lens of movement, because I think you think muscles, you either think, big bulky muscles, or you think like shredded abs or big biceps, or people think, muscles, they're important because our strength and we got to move as we age, you don't move it, you lose it type of thing. But I want you to think of muscles more as your largest endocrine organ. When I say endocrine, you should be thinking blood sugar, you should be thinking hormones, you should be thinking inflammation, and ultimately you should be thinking aging. If you see someone that is well muscled, they're typically going to age much better. You see someone that's well muscled, they typically don't have diabetic issues.
Right,
you see somebody that's well muscled, typically their hormones are probably more optimized than someone who has less muscle.
Yeah, and I think that's a big distinction. So like there might be some that follow along with me on this one, is that when you think about your heart, like you put that kind of in the health category of your brain, right? Like there's certain things you're like, oh, my thyroid, I have a hormone issue, I have a thyroid issue, I have a heart issue, you have all these things, and you're kind of putting that in this health category of your brain, and then muscle is over in this
fitness
other category of your brain that isn't in the health category of your brain for some reason, right? And muscles are like, oh, those are either attractive, or that's for the beach, or that's for athletes, or that's for, like whatever. And you're not necessarily taking those and lumping them in. And what if you started thinking about those in the same vein that you think about, like, where's my cardiovascular health? How's my heart health? Where's my, how's my hormone system working? How's my nervous system functioning? How is my, the list can go on and on and on. But that muscular, that system, that organ of muscles that you have there really falls in the same vein as that.
And I know we used to see this a lot, especially with women. They would come into the gym. They'd be like, I don't really want to gain muscle. I want to lose fat. Yeah. And those two are typically not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not like isolated from one another. Yes. That in order to lose fat, you have to use your muscles. Right. Your muscles, when you are using your muscles, breaking down that muscle tissue, putting stress on it, and then it recovers, the most efficient way of building that muscle up is your body will start breaking down the other tissue, body fat, in order to do the repair work on the muscle. It's really an awesome process the way it's designed, but they're not parcel and part, of one another. They're directly related, and so in order to burn
and that's a talk
fat,
I've had to have with myself before too, right after I had a baby, and I was like, oh, I got 30 pounds to lose here. Like, I'm not in danger of looking like a bodybuilder right now. Like, I'm not in danger of that. Really, all I need to do is have this counterbalance where I'm building muscle in my body so that I can actually burn that fat. Right?
And if you look at somebody who's got a good body composition, I'm not talking to like the old school, like heroin chic, skinny, runway type. I'm talking about like where most people would look at a man or a woman and go, wow, that person's in good shape.
Yeah, they're healthy.
Those people, there's a lot of muscle mass there, and it doesn't have to be bulky. It doesn't have to in order to look like a bodybuilder and be that big, you literally have to live in a gym 24/7. Working out every day for an hour, you're not in jeopardy of that. I promise you that. But muscle through the eyes of, if you do work out every day and you are doing resistance training and you're building muscle and you're putting on a little bit of muscle mass, it's going to improve your insulin sensitivity. It's going to improve the density and function of your mitochondria, which are those powerhouses for your hormones and for your endocrine system, your energy system, so to speak. It's going to protect against frailty, fragility, dementia, and even metabolic diseases. And your muscle is now being regarded as the number one organ of longevity. So after 30, you're either building muscle or you're losing independence, I think is a great way of looking at it.
It's really interesting that that's kind of in the same vein, like frailty, dementia, metabolic disease. Well,
frailty is mental, or dementia is mental frailty, right? Metabolic disease is your energy systems and your recovery systems. It's frailty.
And that link between really metabolic disease and dementia, I mean, it's really interesting there. And then when you talk about that composition of your muscle, sometimes it takes a second to think about all those things don't really go in the same basket in your mind. You know, it isn't something that you're thinking about like, oh, these all go together, but they really do. They're really all in the same, one health basket. And
your muscles, the demand on your muscles is what's moving blood throughout your body. It's what's moving oxygen throughout your body. It's literally part of the process of getting that movement to happen, so there's less stasis. Speaking of stasis, another one is we want to sweat. You want to exercise to sweat. Exercising in such a way that you're detoxifying, you're sweating, and you're getting your lymphatic system moving. one of my favorite things to do is pre and post workout. We have a rebounder. Yeah. It's a trampoline basically. And I don't know why, but I just do 100 jumps before and after my workout. Sometimes they look like jumping jacks. Sometimes I'm kicking my legs around and I do like the Super Mario in the air. But it's just 100 jumps, 100 jumps just to get my lymphatic system moving, because I'm about to start sweating, or at the end of a workout, I am sweating, and I want to make sure that lymphatic system is basically kind of like the garbage truck, or what's the waste management of your body, is getting stuff and kind of the metabolic breakdown out of your blood, and you got to get it moving through that lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system doesn't have its own pump. Right. Your heart controls your circulatory system, but your lymphatic system is actually pumped from movement and muscular activity, and then sweating and hydration and just getting water in so that you can get that lymph moving and get stuff out. And where does it go? Do you know where the lymphatic? No, it goes through your gallbladder and then through your liver, and then it gets filtered out. Yeah. And good stuff gets taken out, and bad stuff gets released through your digestive system.
And there was a season of life where our kids, we marched them downstairs every single morning and put them on the rebounder. And while they were rebounding, we had them saying their affirmations. And what's interesting is that they're really just. There might be a few better ways to start your day, but that's a very short list above that. And what a wonderful thing to do. And if you've never thought about it, if jumping on a trampoline sounds like a little kid thing to you, I challenge you to really just do some more research into what a rebounder could do for you, because it's wonderful.
If you're the person that says, I work out, but I never sweat, or I rarely sweat, there could be one of a couple things going on, and I want you to take survey of all of these, because sweat and exercise should go hand in hand. Number one, are you hydrated enough? Are you drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of water every day? So if you're a 150-pound individual, you got to be drinking bare minimum 75 ounces of water a day. 200-pound individual, 100 ounces of water a day. That does not include coffee, tea, anything else. If you're drinking those, you actually have to increase your water even more. Number two, does your water have minerals in it? That's another important part. We drink so much filtered water, but then all the minerals are gone, and minerals are what help the water get into your cells. Number three, are you working out intensely enough and or long enough? Maybe you're not sweating because you're not actually doing that much work. That might be hard to hear, but you're like, I get on the treadmill for 40 minutes. Yeah, but it's at a 12-minute pace, and you only walked 2 miles or whatever that is. Not even 2 miles, probably a mile or whatever. And the reality is it's going to take a lot more than that to really start driving change, because what we want adaptation in our body. Our body only adapts, and forced adaptation only happens when something is hard or challenging. So we got to increase the intensity and or sometimes increase the duration. Another way of getting yourself sweating before a workout, and this is where you can do some intense cardio to get started right before you lift. You can get in a sauna and get your body temperature up before you lift. You can, I liked the Peloton. So what I would do is I'd get on the Peloton and I would cycle, and then I would jump in the sauna, and I'd be like pouring sweat. But sweating is a part of fitness. And if you're working out and you're not sweating, there's probably some stuff going on that's affecting your hormone optimization and your detoxification. And now you can work out and maybe be fit, but doesn't mean it's healthy. So sweating is a huge part of that. Yep. And then cardio fitness, and I don't want to talk about cardio fitness just in terms of your heart. It's really about, we said, oxygen and using oxygen in our cells. So walking does not necessarily equal cardiovascular training. Sweat doesn't necessarily mean cardio adaptation, because, like I said, you can do that in a sauna. So when we talk about cardio, this is like those heart rate zones. And this is the one that we, and you kind of go through these: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. Typically zone 4, like, it's hard to maintain zone 4 for an extended period of time. Right. Zone 2 is where your mitochondria actually start improving. Zone 4 is where we're driving lots of oxygen into tissue. And so burst or surge training is really good, because you're all over the map in those zones.
Yeah.
You're never in one of them for an extended period of time. Like when we went to, what was the name of the gym? OTF, Orange Theory Fitness.
Yeah.
There's a hour-long workout. They only want you in, I think it's zone 4 for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Not the whole time.
Yeah.
But in order for that workout to really be effective, for it to create the adaptation, they do want you in that zone for about 12 minutes of 60.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time we went, they're called splat points, and I got 47 splat points, which means I was in zone 4 or 5 for most of the workout. And that's not necessarily good either, because it actually can create too much stress on the body. It can ruin your recovery and all these things. So this whole idea of stressing the body, you got to get above 80% of your VO2 max. That's the measurement of your capacity, to drive oxygen into your body. We want to get up to 80% of that, meaning you're breathing heavy and you're struggling to have a conversation. And the research shows if you get into that zone for at least 12 minutes, that you are going to burn significantly more fat for the 36 hours after you exercised than you are during the exercise itself. And that's the goal, get ourselves in this fat burning, incinerating, incinerator, turning your body into that. And we really want to be burning that fat for those 36 hours afterwards. How do you do that? Again, spending 12 minutes into that really intense work where whatever you're doing, you're struggling to breathe while you're doing it.
And like here's the biggest thing out of the whole kit and caboodle when it comes to fitness is that your fitness is governed by your nervous system. Like it just is.
Yep. Everything's regulated by your nervous system. And this is what's interesting when people come in and athletes, like they've measured 14% improvement on reaction times with athletes, better recovery when people are getting adjusted. When people get adjusted, they move better. When people get adjusted, what's weird is, again, because of recovery, because of all these things, but also just neurologically, the firing, the stress that it takes to lift heavy objects. You want a more efficient functioning nervous system. So nervous system and getting adjusted, getting chiropractic care affects every aspect of that fitness. Nobody would question, does it affect balance? Yeah. Does it affect stability? Yeah. Absolutely. The research is very clear on it. Does it affect accuracy? Like if you were a dart player or if you're a golfer that's trying to, park it 2 feet from the cup.
Yeah.
How well your body is moving, how well your nervous system is firing. That's huge. Yeah. We had a doctor that worked with us. He was Olympic level, him and his brother were Olympic level archers, and absolutely they had a chiropractor working with them because that nervous system is that key.
I don't think there's any athlete on planet Earth who doesn't want to be more accurate in what they're doing, whether you're playing basketball, whether you're throwing a football, whether you're hitting a volleyball. I mean, all of it over time. It's all important, and a healthy spine supports that healthy nervous system, and that's and the function of your nervous system is dictated, by your chiropractic adjustments. So
hopefully taking the focus off of just simply how we look in the mirror or, our weight on the scale has really reframed this conversation and helped you to think about your fitness and working out from one of the things, the tools that you have in your tool bag to build health. Fitness is part of health. Like you want a remarkable life, you want a remarkable health. Having good fitness is part of that. And if you need help with that, we would love, reach out to us. We have some great, especially if you're in our area, we have great resources, and we have patients who own gyms and fitness centers and all kinds of stuff. So reach out to us and we can help you find that.